Welcome back to Breakdowns and Bets. As always, I'm Santino DeFranco with Brandon Olivas. And today, instead of going right into breakdowns and bets, like we usually do, for the upcoming UFC fight we have this weekend, Yair Rodriguez and Max Holloway, we're actually going to talk about last weekend's UFC 268, which was one of the best cards in a long time. It was one of the best betting cards in a long time. And it was probably one of the best that we've done pick-wise, bet-wise, money-wise in a long time. Would you agree with all of those things?
Yeah, and hey, you know what? Just before we get into last week's recap, big shout out to our manager Brian Hamper. He really came through this week. We have a few sponsors, so Crispy Crunchy Chicken, Daily Stop Gas Station, right? What's the address on that?
It's 1201 East Missouri Avenue, Phoenix, Arizona, 85014.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the second sponsor, and this is where Brian really came in big. He got us all of Ireland as a sponsor, which is amazing. Nothing in particular, just all of Ireland.
All of Ireland sponsored us. Man, that is a big one. They should sponsor us with all of the press that you are giving all of their fighters, especially coming off of Cage Warriors.
Well, speaking of which, I just want to talk about this because this was incredible. So there was a Bellator on Friday. The walkouts in Bellator was maybe the most amazing thing. That was probably the best crowd I have ever seen for any MMA event. So Michael C. Williams was giving the history of that song Zombie, which you know very well because of Korean Zombie and the bomb exploding and the kids and all the stuff.
Yeah,
and so
the IRA.
Incredible. The crowd sang the song for a round and a half after it was already going. I have never heard an intro before where you couldn't even hear the announcer in the cage because the crowd was so loud. I had to watch it like 3 or 4 times. And even the co-main, James Gallagher, that was like a Paddy the Baddy walkout. I mean, it was just like so fun. You know, I ended up losing the fight, but actually they both lost, but just incredible atmosphere, incredible card, great fights. That was a fun one.
Thank you, Ireland. What do we get for that? Unlimited cabbage and potatoes for the rest of our lives?
Yeah, and a big check.
Yeah, you know, we have a guy, Roman Salazar, who fought in Ireland against James Gallagher. And he said, and Kamuela Kurt cornered him for that. And he said he'd never been in an arena that loud. He said never heard for anything. He said football game, basketball game, concert. He has never heard a crowd that loud ever. And it was, of course, with Roman, it was all boos. But with Gallagher, it was just cheers. He said it was the craziest experience he's ever been in. Those Irish know how to drink. And
they know how to party.
Fight. Yeah, and they mix the two things together. And who am I saying? Those Irishmen. Look at me. I'm as Irish of a human as I've ever seen. Like looking in the mirror, I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm sponsoring myself in the podcast. Like, how does that work?
All right, let's dive on in. So let's start from the bottom.
Let's start from the bottom. Now we're here. I think, man, I'm going through. Even Odie Osborne. Odie Osborne was the very first fight of the night. Killed it. CJ Vargas. Did you bet on this one or no?
Yeah, so this was actually where I started, and this was less of a I feel great about O'Day and more so like I don't like CJ, and he robbed me for all my money on Contender Series. I think I lost $20,000 that night because of CJ Vergara. I just don't think he's a UFC caliber guy. You know, this is my weight class, so I can be really honest and judge people fairly. To me, he's not UFC caliber, and him even making the fight as close as it was shows me a little something about O'Day as well. But O'Day was able to get the first 2 rounds. CJ came back in the third, but got it done pretty clear.
Yeah, it was a scary fight, but I think I had some money on O'Day, and going into that third round, I was like, whoa, I might be losing some money on O'Day.
Yeah, he seemed to gas a little bit. You know, when that pressure kept coming, you know, his wrestling was really far away. And he's a big flyweight. He's a huge flyweight.
is, and he faded quickly, like we see with these big fighters in the division. Not quickly, but he definitely, you usually don't see flyweights fade like that. And he did. He faded out. But, I don't want to spend too much time on a lot of these. We got a lot to get through. I'm super happy about this one. We called it to a T. I called it to a T. Melsick, man, Bagdasarian and Bruno Souza. It couldn't have gone closer to what, I kind of thought it would. Just, I didn't think that I thought that Souza would win. I thought he would make it I don't even know if it was a competitive fight. I think it was maybe it was competitive. He definitely won, I think round 3. I think all 3 judges gave him round 3. Melsick gassed like we kind of thought, but he evades. He doesn't do a lot. He is boring, but man, is he hard to find, especially in that big, large pay-per-view cage, which I think is either 30 or 32 feet on that one. But again, Melsick won it. Fight went pretty much according to plan. And, he earned a lot of people some money.
Yeah, and he took away a lot of money too. So, I'm not big on the prop bets. A lot of people like the finish props and the KOs and the rounds, and that stuff for me is not sustainable. It's a fun throw a dart at it. I can't tell you how many people I saw had Melsick by KO, and if they would have listened to the podcast, you told them, hey, Bruno's not going to even fight him. And that's what he had to do, was chase him down for 3 straight rounds.
He's going to win, but man, finishing him is hard. Even the fight before this, the card before this, I had, who ruined my prop? Machkov. Islam Machkov ruined a 5-fight parlay. I had him winning. I thought he is going to beat Dan Hooker. I had it going over a round, and you get a prop bet like that with a seasoned vet like Hooker, a guy like Islam who's very good but is not generally finishing people in the first round, and he goes out there and he submits him in the first round. Prop bets are hard. It's a lot easier to call a win than it is how, when, where, what part of the cage were they at when the win takes place.
Yeah. And these books are going to keep getting rich by adding more props. I've seen books now doing like how many significant strikes get landed, how many takedowns in the first round. To me, that's something you're drinking with your buddies. You want to throw $5 at it, see if you can hit it. That's great. But for me, on the other hand, who's very serious about this and wants to not only make a living, but make a killing, it's just not sustainable. There's no way that I can put serious money on something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. But we talk about it all the time. We do talk about the over a round doesn't go. I think over a round is a much safer prop bet.
That's the safest one you can have.
That's the safest one you can get. And I usually, when I do over a round, honestly, I think Islam might have been the only time I've ever lost on an over a round prop bet. Generally, those are the safest ones. That said, I lost on Islam. But we've got a couple other ones.
Yeah.
Your boy. Oh, sorry. What was that?
No, let's move right along. Dustin Jacoby.
Yeah, because what I want to do is I want to get through the fights, kind of call the guys that we said we're going to win, and then I want to hear the bets that you had because you won a lot of money. So I'm curious to see like what exact bets you had. So I want to run through these, see the fights, the way that we called them. And I think we got all of them right except for one, which we'll talk about here shortly. But anyway, so Dustin Jacoby won. Just a clinic. Got a little tired. But, he took the fight on, 4 days' notice, so you would expect that.
Did you think he got tired? I thought he was looking clean. I thought Allen was starting to catch his timing a little bit in that third round. But I thought he kept a high pace, man. He looked great.
I thought he kept a high pace, but he slowed down. Like, maybe it was the timing. Maybe it wasn't. Again, when you're round one and a half, when you have speed and athleticism, you can move out of the way of shots that won't hit you. Round 3, you're a little bit more tired, and those shots are going to hit you because you're just a little bit slower. So I don't know if it was a combination of timing and slowing down a little bit. He didn't look bad by any means, but round 3, he definitely got hit with more stuff than he was in round 1.
Dustin is one of my favorite fighters. He's the leader on the list there. That fight scared me more than anybody else. Just the way that he fights, where he puts his chin out there. We talk about it all the time. That's a way to fight, right? And it draws people in. It's high level striking, but at the same time, your chin's still sticking out there, and you get a 205 pounder. Anything can change the course of the fight. And I was nervous the entire fight. And as the announcers, oh, he's getting tired. I'm like, no way, come on. It just made me nervous.
Yeah, I could see that.
Now, surprise of the night.
Oh my gosh. So first of all, I didn't bet on this with any parlays or with anything, but I do is every once in a while I'll do some fun stuff with the kids and my wife. And we'll choose, like, I do it with football too. I let them pick 2 out of 3. So if the Bills are playing the Colts and my wife says the Colts, one of my sons says the Bills, and the other son says the Colts. Okay, so money's going on the Colts, and it would just do $1, $2 bet, stuff like that. With this fight, I've never seen Chris Barnett fight, and John Vellante, like we've seen him. He's a little heavier than whatever. Wasn't even planning on it. Wasn't planning on bet. I didn't bet anything real, and I said, all right, who's going to win this? And they all said Chris Barnett by. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, he's the better dancer. I was like, okay, can't argue with that. Came out there, moving around, having fun. Looks like he's coming off of a construction site with some crispy, crunchy chicken in his hand. And I mean, just spinning wheel kick to the head. And that was probably the most impressive spinning attack I think I've ever seen in my life, even more so than Joaquin Buckley one, because of how big Barnett is and just how shocking that should not happen with somebody that defied all physics, and that was awesome.
Especially 5'9" against a guy who's 6'3". How do you get it up there?
And then he and then the dance afterwards, and then he gave all of the mic time to John Vellante and said, "Hey man, this is a retirement fight. I don't want to take his time from this." Just what a class act, fun fight. Loved all of it. And man, I cannot wait to watch him fight again.
I can, because I can't wait to fade him against somebody who's legitimately a fighter, not just big, fat John Vellante. I did lose money on Vellante. That was the only pick I made this week of my official picks on Telegram that I lost, and I shouldn't have even put him in there. Big, fat John Vellante. Shouldn't have even made it to the list.
No, it shouldn't have. He outweighed himself by 30 pounds and what we've seen him before. But
did you see Chris Weidman's? Did you see Chris Weidman's post today yesterday about his retiring? It's just shows John Vellante over the years. In his first picture, he's tiny, shredded, 6-pack abs, and you just see it kind of going along. And now he's got a spare tire around his waist, just this big old belly.
I think retirement is the best option for him at the end of a long, storied career.
Yeah. All right, moving right along to Mr. Ian Garry.
Ian Garry. That had me a little worried at the start.
Yeah, he faced some early adversity, and I think we talk about this a lot. I don't think Jordan Williams is UFC caliber at all, but I don't think that he knows that. And he came out there swinging for the fences, ready to upset a party. He knows he doesn't have a crazy gas tank. He knows all the odds are stacked against him, and he just came to let's upset the party. And he actually looked great doing it.
Yeah, I was worried, but Ian Garry looked great. He did. He had some adversity, pushed through it, caught him with just a clean rock back. Short little punch, and man, Ian Garry, you got to give him credit. He looked good. He's got some work to do. A lot of these guys coming from Cage Warriors, I think we were really high on him a few weeks ago, and I think lately I'm pumping the brakes. I'm not stopping the car. I'm pumping the brakes a little bit. I like him. I like Mason Jones. I like Ian Garry. I like these guys. But I think for them to excel in the UFC, they're going to need a little bit of work. They're going to need a little bit of wrestling. And they're going to need a little bit of time to develop into the UFC as opposed to Cage Warriors.
I just want to say this about Ian Garry, because I had the most people message me about Ian Gary and say, "Oh man, he got exposed. He's not ready. He's trash. I can't wait to bet against him." And I just want to say this, guys. If you looked at Ian Gary on his walkout, he had the fattest herpy you've ever seen on his lip. Okay.
Oh yeah, I noticed that.
And, me, I get that all the time, right? When I get stressed out, when I'm not sleeping, when I'm training too hard, I'll get it on my head sometimes. And it's a product of being stressed out, not, being tired and everything I'm talking about. So you got to think about this. This kid is getting a massive push from the UFC. I told you guys, it's rare they tell you who they want to win. This was one of those spots. He's getting the McGregor push. He's getting all this media. His very first fight in the UFC, not to mention regular UFC jitters, and he's not fighting at the Apex in front of 10 people. He's fighting at Madison Square Garden in his UFC debut. That is stressful. Man, if you're going to get UFC jitters, that is the time you're going to get it. So I watch a lot of film, guys. I can tell you who's the truth and who's not the truth. Ian Gary is absolutely the truth. He has everything that you look for. He's 6'3" in the welterweight division. It's insane. Watch his next fight. Next fight is where you can start to judge him. When he's not fighting at Madison Square Garden on the biggest card of the year, when he's not stressed like crazy, he's going to have more time at Sanford. Just watch, guys. He's the truth. He is every bit of the truth. He will impress his next fight.
All right. I like it. Moving on. Bobby Green, Ally Quinta. This is another one where people lost a lot of money because they thought this is going decision. It's going over a round. And Bobby Green decided that he was, he had done enough. He'd seen enough. He was out of there. He had a party to go to. And he put Ally Quinta out early. Is that the last we see of Al?
I think so. I mean, how could it not be, right? He's got a successful career outside the UFC. You get put out like that in your hometown. I mean, what's the motivation?
Yeah, I agree, man. It was, I really like Bobby Green. I really like Ally Quinta. I really like Bobby Green's movement. I think his stand-up, as unorthodox as it is some of my favorite to watch. The way that he rolls punches and moves is clean. Reminds me of like a Roy Jones back in the day. Just love to watch him fight. Can't wait to watch him fight again. And he's no young kid. So
he's 36. I wish he was 6 years younger.
Oh my gosh. If he got to the UFC a little bit earlier, we might be seeing, a guy in the top 5 fighting for a title.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you guys look at it, his worst matchup in the division is Fiziev because of the way Fiziev throws body kicks, right? With the hands down style, working the body is everything. And we see how close the fight was with Fiziev. So standing, who else in the division is going to come close to him? I mean, he's definitely a problem. I wish we had more time with Bobby.
Yeah, I agree. If he was a little bit younger, he tends to give up some positions. He gives up stuff. He will get taken down. He'll kind of stay on the cage fence a little bit longer, but he's never really out of a fight. It's almost like he's a little too passive in there. He's a little too comfortable. If he would get a little less comfortable, a little more agitated, fight a little bit more for those positions, I think he would win some of those close decision losses. And I think he'd be probably ranked significantly higher because he's never out of a fight. It's just he'll lose some of those fights. He loses the small moments.
It was nice to see him go out and win a fight as opposed to not lose a fight.
I agree with that 100%. Absolutely. We've got Pereira, and we called all of these. I mean, the John Vellante one, that was the one, mix up that we've gotten so far. Alex Pereira just smashed, in his UFC debut. I was a little worried there in the first round. Just not that he was going to get like submitted, but just, oh man, is he just going to be taken down and just kind of held on? And the world doesn't get to see Pereira stand up. And nope. He just needed a little bit of time. And of course, a flying knee. And then we have the main card. We've got the main card. I loved that it opened with Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler. And they did because Trevor Whitman had 3 fighters on this main card. He had Gaethje in the opener, he had Rose Namajunas, and then he had Kamaru Usman. And he asked to switch it earlier just so he would have, more time to prepare, which I think is a great move. I think it's great the UFC allowed it. But generally you're ready to watch a UFC fight. You're ready to watch the main card. You're hyped up. You're ready to go. And then it takes a little while to build. And then we had this big fight right out of the gate, and they didn't take any time to build. They went right out of the gates. I mean, they were racehorses just sprinting, and holy hell. I mean, I think we both said gun to our head we would choose Chandler, but then I think we said, or not, I know we said we're not touching this because it's a coin toss. And I think we were absolutely right. It was a freaking coin toss until that final bell. It was one of the most fun fights I've ever seen in my life, though.
By far, one of the best fights ever. And, it's so rare that we get 2 fighters like this, and the fight turns out better than we expected it to. A lot of times you get these crazy matchups and then it ends up so boring. I mean, Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, stuff like that. And this fight not only lived up to the hype, but it exceeded it far and away. Amazing fight.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite fights I've ever seen. And like you said, the fights that are supposed to be the best ever, they never live up to the hype. And this one did, and it exceeded, and it was a lot of fun. And then afterwards, again, I think this next fight, Shane Burgos, and we're kind of flying through these because I want to get through them. I want to get to all of them and then talk about the bets. But one thing that we said about Shane Burgos, we both said he wins. Where we went wrong was we thought that he was going to have a highlight reel kind of knockout performance against Billy Quarantillo. And man, I guess Quarantillo didn't listen to the podcast because he wasn't on the same page. He fought his ass off. And what was a really, really good, exciting, fun fight to watch, unfortunately for them, it just followed one of the best fights the world has ever seen. And so nobody really cared about that fight. Not that nobody cared, but I know where I was at. The intensity was gone after that Gaethje fight. We were watching some boxing, and I was just glancing over every once in a while at this Quarantillo-Shane Burgos fight.
This was I was geeking out more about this fight than the one before. So the Gaethje Chandler fight is just bite down on your mouthpiece and let's swing and see who it hits first. This fight was super technical and everything was a chess match. Man, what an amazing fight. And, I think Billy Q, we talked about this with Camuela. He's going to beat a lot of guys in the UFC just by being there. His striking is a lot better than I remember. He makes better decisions than I remember. He doesn't die. He is going to beat a lot of people just by not making a mistake, not making the first big mistake.
He's durable and he has cardio for days.
And he's only going to get beat by guys that have cardio for days, like Shane Burgos.
Yeah, if you get tired, you will lose against Billy Quarantillo. You cannot beat that guy. You're not going to put him away. I mean, it's surprising he has a TKO loss earlier in his career where he got put away. And since then, I mean, he's lost. He lost to Gavin Tucker, he lost to Shane Burgos, top guys in the division. And man, I think if he plays his cards right, I think if he trains correctly, he's still pretty young. Man, I think he could really break that top 10. He's just got to, I almost think, sit down on his punches a little bit more, throw a little bit more hate. He's a volume guy, but he has the cardio to push it. And you see him when people aren't overwhelmed by his volume. Those are the guys who beat him. And so I'd like to see Quarantillo have a little bit more finishing power, not just take a beating, outlast, and end up coming back, but find some earlier finishing ways, kind of in that round one, the first half of the fight. If he could find a way to put some people away in the first half of the fight, I think he could do some really good things.
Now to the biggest whiff of the night.
Man. Marlon, Vera, Frankie, Edgar. And, I think you were right. You said the odds makers know something. And these are those fights. Guys with losses, older. Why is it as close as it is? And it was as close as it is because Frankie is Frankie. And Frankie had a lot of success. I think he got tired in that third round and just wasn't pushing. And I think he thought that he had done enough to kind of win and was kind of coasting. Not coasting in a sense where he was going to take the gas off completely, but not trying to secure that extra takedown, not trying to go push it, not trying to go find a fight. And man, Vera is tough. I don't think I give Vera enough credit. And, but man, he's tough. He got up a couple of times and he will fight you tooth and nail. That's a guy, if he was at 145, that's a guy I would like to see fight Billy Quarantillo. That would make a fun fight.
His last fight with Davey Grant was phenomenal. I mean, again, one of those amazing fights I've ever seen. Yeah, we were exactly right. Frankie, I thought was winning the fight until that up kick. I was like, okay, I think he got one and he's winning 3. Very, very, very close fight. It's reflective of what the odds maker showed you. But at the end of the day, you look at the technicals. You have a 28-year-old who's a UFC vet, great wins in the division, over a 40-year-old Frankie Edgar cutting to 35. You just had to look at the technicals, and it hit correctly the way it should have hit on that one.
Yeah, I think so. I think we tried to fight it, but we didn't. I didn't pick Rose or Wei Li because I'm close to that Wei Li camp. You chose Rose. Did that fight go as you thought? And going into the decision, did you think that Rose did enough to win it?
This was one of the most bizarre ones because, I'm sitting here watching the fight and, the round, some of the rounds were very clear, right? We know Rose won 4 and 5, but as I'm watching the fight, okay, I'm going, I think Rose is winning, but if you ask me to pick what round she won, I don't know. It could have been 1. It could have been 2. She won 4 and 5 for sure, right? It's the only fight I've ever watched where I'm like, I think she's winning, but I couldn't tell you which round she won.
Why or how. Yeah, that was a close one.
Yeah,
you can't say, a lot of people are like, oh, Wei Li won that. People say Rose won it. It definitely wasn't a robbery. It was a very close fight. But man, I don't know. I think it could have gone either way, and I'm glad I'm not a judge.
Yeah, and again, guys, that's what we said. The next level of betting is going to be finding out those judges. What do they value? What do they value? More. With Wei Li, she had a lot more top control. Her takedowns were better. Honestly, she was winning a lot of the stand-up exchanges too. Mm-hmm. So,
and then Rose
just won these little moments at important times.
Yes. Yep, I think you're right. And then, of course, we have Usman and Colby. Again, I thought we had Usman winning. I thought Usman was going to find a stoppage in there. Not that Colby is known to be stopped or anything, but Usman just seems to be getting better and better and better. And this was a really solid, dominant performance by Usman. Did at any point in time, did it look like the momentum was shifting that Colby was going to win to you?
Yeah, for a split second. If there's one knock on Usman, right, it's not his wrestling. His striking is getting better every single time, but it's his chin. He's been rocked in a lot of fights before, and it's happened. Watching the first 2 rounds and the way that Usman was cornering Colby looked like a child. Usman, he was just terrified to fight. And then in the 3rd round, he finally was like, okay, now it's time to fight and it's time to go. And it seemed like almost every punch he threw at Usman was rocking him. And now I don't think they were rocking him. And we've talked about this before. A lot of times the way you react to punches can sway the judges and it can sway the audience, right? Every time Usman's getting hit, he's shaking his head like crazy and doing all these things. If he had long hair, you'd be like, oh, he's getting rocked with every punch. I don't think it was as close as that. But you could definitely feel the momentum shifting, and Colby made a great comeback and turned out for an awesome fight.
Yeah, it really did. You hit it on the head. The first 2 rounds, Colby was tentative, and I don't know why. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was he hasn't fought a lot over the last couple of years since their first meeting or what, but he was not in Usman's face from the get-go like we usually see, which kind of threw me off. I thought he was going to volume. And then it comes down to a war of attrition toward the end. And he kind of gave those first 2 rounds away, which I'm curious to see like if that was the game plan, if it was just him getting comfortable, what. Well, we'll probably never know, but that was definitely an interesting, first couple of rounds. Now let's get to the bet cards. What did you have? I mean, we've already spent quite a bit of time on this. What were your big winners?
Yeah, man, this was an amazing week. The last time we got on here, I was so sad because another Cage Warriors guys, Burlinson, got knocked out, and I was down about $10,000 to start the week. Between that and Bellator, even though all my picks hit on Bellator, I went off script and picked some things that ended up killing me. So I was down about $10,000 to start the week, right? So I was playing conservative, kind of. As conservative as I play, I did end up going for it. I mean, all my bets were, I don't know, $2,000-$3,000 at a time. So the way that I worked it, guys, I put my mainstays. I picked Dustin Jacoby and Ian Gary as my two locks. For me, that's my locks. Those were the guys that were going to do it. And then I spread the wealth elsewhere. So my first one was O'Day Osborne, Dustin Jacoby, and Ian Gary. Okay. O'Day won. Perfect. So then I put a separate ticket with Melsick, Dustin, and Ian. Okay. Melsick won. So now we just need Ian and Dustin to start off a great, great night. I missed on John Vellante.
Was he in any of your bets?
Yeah. You know what? So what was kind of fun is I was playing live as the event was going. As each bet would hit or each fight would go, I was like, okay, let's throw in a little bit extra. So those were my first few bets to start. Dustin Jacoby, Ian Gary, and then I had one with Melsick, one with O'Day, and one with Alex Pereira, just like I said on the podcast last week, right? After Dustin and Ian Gary both won, my account filled up. It looked nice. So then I laid the second half of my plan out, right? So the second half of my plan, I threw in Bobby Green, Alex Pereira, and Shane Burgos. I put an extra $2,000 on it. By the time all was said and done, I ended up profiting $20,000 this week just by playing live, playing as we were going. All of our picks were hitting. I stayed away from the ones that I knew I needed to stay away from. My only losses this week were Frankie Edgar. I just took a stab straight up. John Vellante. And then the main event, I actually chose it to go to not go the distance. And it did. So those were my three losses, but I kept gapping up, and man, it turned into such a great week.
Good. And so that's 20,000. Is that on top of the 10,000 loss, or just on this fight? Or is that up 20, even with the 10,000 loss on the, kind of the earlier in the week?
I finished up 10,000 for the week. So lost 10,
okay.
Made 20, finished up $10,000 for the week.
Okay, nice. It's not a bad haul for a week's work.
Yeah, and I don't think we're wizards by any means, right? I think we're very smart in the fight game. I watch a lot of film. It's not by accident. But there's always people that are going to do better than me. There's always people that are going to bet more than me. I'm not the baller. I'm a baller, and just a young one at that, right? I'm a small fish in a small pond. So,
well, interesting. Well, awesome, man. It's good to hear. We've got another video coming up here shortly. You guys tune in. We're going to talk about Max Holloway and Yair Rodriguez and give our predictions and breakdowns on that. So make sure you guys tune in. That one will be coming up here soon. Brandon, as always, good to see you.
Thanks.